The Chinese military is ramping up for a possible invasion of Taiwan in 2027. To stop it, the U.S. military and its allies want to use thousands of unmanned vehicles in a strategy called Hellscape. Admiral Samuel Paparo, the head of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, says when the Chinese attack, they want to do it quickly and with as much force as possible so as to prevent the United States or its allies from interfering. The key to stopping that invasion, according to Paparo, is thwarting the initial volley of attacks across the 100-mile waterway separating Taiwan from mainland China. To do that, the U.S. will need to pre-position thousands of unmanned surface and subsurface vessels, creating a hellscape of attack vehicles ready to take on any ship that comes its way. When the Chinese ships start sailing, the drones will stall those efforts long enough for Taiwan, the U.S., and their allies to secure the island's defense and mount a sufficient counterattack.
And all of a sudden, the risk calculus for the Chinese get very, very complicated, and especially since this is an away game. So how do you operationalize an away game? You know, you're going to fight with what you've got when the balloon goes up. And how much of that stuff can you move in theater? Let me tell you, you get a lot of this stuff inside the first island chain that really makes China say, well, maybe not today.
That was Virginia Representative Rob Whitman speaking on a congressional panel at the 2025 Sea Airspace Defense Conference hosted by the Navy League. Whitman and his Mississippi colleague, Representative Trent Kelly, say the success of the U.S. mission will depend on its ability to field the needed technology faster than it's used to.
We've got to do a better job of building things that are commercial and adapting those to military use and vice versa. We don't need to lose the lessons that we've learned in the industrial base. We need to use those whether we're building commercial ships. 80% of the things are going to be the same as a military ship. And so why are we redoing that? Why are we redesigning the things that we already know that work?
Enter Havoc AI and its CEO and founder, Paul Lewin.
I came to the U.S. As a refugee when I was 10. The first U.S. person that I ever saw was at the embassy when they got us out. So that Marine represented safety and security to me as a child.
Lewin wanted to make sure others felt that same sort of safety and security, so he joined the U.S. Navy and became an aviator. When he left the service, he started working in the defense industry, while on his own time working to develop the software needed for tactical autonomy, a fancy way of saying writing the computer code that lets vehicles move around and coordinate in real-world environments. It was during this time, near the beginning of 2024, that Lewin went to a work conference where the Undersecretary of Defense talked about the DoD's Replicator Initiative, which aims to field thousands of low-cost drones in the next few years.
At that conference, there was one thing that she told me that resonated with me. She said, hey, all these things are cool, all these prototypes that everyone is bringing in here. But she said, I don't know if you all realize that all we want is a company to build boats, make them robotic, and make them autonomous and walk together and be able to build thousands of them. Luckily for us, me and my co-founders had been building these things in our garages and using things we bought from Amazon, writing a lot of sophisticated software to see if we could make, cheap boats autonomous. And so when she said this, I was like, well, I know how to do that. So the next day I quit my job and started Havoc.
Havoc AI's first autonomous vehicle is the Rampage, a 14-foot-long boat capable of carrying a 300-pound payload. So it can be used for simple surveillance or be used as a forward-deployed weapons platform. It's also self-righting, putting it in a better position to withstand the punishments of the Pacific.
Everything we put on the boat is commercially available, right? And that is important, right? If you think about, if you go and try to build it yourself, like a lot of companies do, they're vertically integrated, and they reinvent things that already exist, right? What we want to do is to keep the cost down and make the reliability high, right? The only way to do that is to use things that exist in the commercial markets. The boat, it is a special design. We own the design rights to it, and we use a a very exceptional boat manufacturer in Rhode Island to build them at scale. But even the boat itself, we consider it's a component.
A component of what Lewin says Havoc AI is really working on, the artificial intelligence agent actually controlling the craft.
What we have to do is put a lot of boats on the water over and over, just like the companies that were building self-driving cars, right? They drove over 1 million miles. So that's what we set out to do. A lot of our competitors have only operated 1 or 2 boats and have maybe 100 hours, right? You are lying to yourself if you think those boats are autonomous, and they're definitely not collaborative because you can't collaborate with one thing.
In the 18 months since its founding, Havoc AI built 42 rampages. 32 are assigned to customers, including within the Department of Defense. They can be controlled by an operator thousands of miles away, can carry all sorts of payloads, and they're also solar powered. So even on the move, the Rampage can charge its battery in about 5 hours.
So that opens up all these long duration use cases, right? They could sit for months out in the Pacific, just waiting for something to happen. And that's what's compelling, right? And also at the end of the day, they're incredibly affordable.
At a base price of about $100,000, Lewin says the Rampage is a tenth of the price of its nearest competitor. That price point is intentional and should allow the DoD to buy enough Rampages to create a giant sensor array in the Pacific.
So rather than having, say, one, guided missile destroyer sit and try to monitor 1,000 miles of the ocean, you can have 100 boats spread out over 1,000 miles. That's incredibly difficult to defeat, and it's more resilient. And the fidelity is higher, right? Because you have 100 different sensors trying to pick up over 1,000 miles.
And from a logistics perspective, when we talk about the collaboration of it and the maritime collaboration, your vision is to have one human on the loop that's controlling thousands of these vessels all over the place. You just did a test and you controlled, from 300, 400 miles away, you were able to control some of these vessels, right? So from a logistics perspective, you're able to, by a satellite or whatever, be able to say, all right, take these bullets and beans from this island to that island, go this route so that you avoid those folks over there, right?
No, you just hit it. We just did a test last week where we had 25 vessels across. There were some vessels in Europe, some on the East Coast, and some on the West Coast. And we were going to have vessels in Hawaii, but we couldn't get permission to operate them in Hawaii. But we operated all of these commanded all of these vessels from a site in San Diego. Right, almost halfway across the globe, 25 vessels that had never been done, and we did it in front of observers from the DoD. We had over 150 DoD observers coming, and what you just described, right, it's phenomenal. It's also what we need to go to. If you think about the Pacific Ocean, it's 8,000 miles wide. Right, you're going to have thousands of autonomous assets that are being operated, and you can't do one parsing to one autonomous asset, right? That doesn't make sense. That's also not the value that autonomy provides, right? What you want is one parsing, monitoring 1,000 assets, and then figuring out what's going on and doing things with them to achieve some desired effect. So that's what we demonstrated. We're at 25. This summer we'll be at 100, and hopefully, with the DoD's help, we'll be at thousands in the Pacific.
In addition to working with the DoD on further developing the Rampage, Havoc AI is also building a larger 40-foot version of the vehicle called the Seahound. It will be able to carry a 1,000-pound payload and is scheduled for at-sea testing in early 2026. The Seahound will still operate on the same AI agent that the Rampage uses, though. And since Lewin says the software doesn't care about the size of the boat it's operating or that it's even a boat, we can expect some unmanned ground vehicles, aerial vehicles, and subsurface vehicles from Havoc AI soon as well. For more unbiased, straight fact updates like this, be sure to download the Straight Arrow News app today.